Hello, Whole Grow Leaders. Thanks for joining us for week 4. It's flying by. Today we have Louise from EYI joining us again, but also Kerrie Otto de Grancy, who is Marie's business partner. Ladies, thank you so much. Welcome back, Marie. And Kerrie, you've jumped on before with our videos and our little panel sessions, but look, I want to let you guys have as much time as possible. But what I thought before we start, and I hand it over to you ladies, is if everyone could just take a couple of 10 seconds, not even, to just think about what kind of intention would you like to set for today's workshop. And don't overthink it. Just think whatever comes up first. Maybe scribble it down. What would you like to get out of today's workshop or watching this video? And it might be something for yourself. It might be something for your business. It might be something for your family. Let's just set that intention. Feel free to write it down. And you can keep thinking about that while I get the lovely ladies from Evolve Yourself Institute to take over. What are we talking about this week?
Thanks, Letitia. Oh, very excited. Combination of environment and its impacts and our incredible ABC method, which we're pretty excited to be introducing to everyone today. So awareness, breath, and choice. So that's what we'll be kicking off with shortly. Yeah.
Kes, did you want me to, are we starting it up, Letitia? What do you find?
Oh, Letitia's muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I muted myself. I've just changed the settings so you can share your screen. I realized I hadn't done it, so I was clicking away. Sorry. So dive in.
I'm just going to share the screen. I've got, just going to share the screen.
So in my world of video production, when a phone goes off in the middle of something, the person whose phone it belongs to, they need to buy everyone a case of beer or a bottle of wine. Just so you know.
I want to, it's a real pickle in my life, to be honest. And I'm hoping someone in the technology world can maybe give me some insight on that. I've got my messenger hooked up to my computer, and I've got my phone on silent or even airplane, but it still comes through on my computer, and I haven't been able to work out how I modify that. So
do not disturb. See if that works.
In which one? We're on my computer.
On your phone, even if you've got it on do not disturb, that might transfer.
Oh no, it's on airplane on my phone. It's actually more to do with my computer. Yeah. So excuse me if another one comes through. I'll just subtly rein it in, and hopefully won't be up for too many beers. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, look. So, thank you for popping the slide up, Marie. So, of course, today is all about recover, rewire, and renew into wellness. And Letitia, when we spoke, what was it, a couple of months ago, a few weeks ago now, before the series started, obviously the conversation very much around the last couple of years and the impact of COVID-19 and I guess the flow-on effect of that for everybody, and the real, I guess, through the conversation we recognize that there is a real availability right here, right now, with tools that can bring some kind of sense of peace and wellness. And it was Justine was just sharing a little while ago that our first video that we did with you, the opening video series, Marie Louise took everyone through beautiful breath practices and talked about the benefits of belly breath and conscious breathing. And that was a beautiful foundational start to introduce to you guys today the ABC method. So we've obviously been experiencing incredible amounts of extended stress. We're tapping in even to global grief with what's been going on. It's not an isolated event. There's disconnection that we've all been experiencing. And obviously as business owners, you've got that added stress in many households of being in your home environments. You don't have the familiar boundaries that often happen when you step into an office and you leave your home. You've got homeschooling going on, all of these things which, you know, I can relate to very much so as a mum of 2, homeschooling and running a business. And I imagine myself in a situation where if I didn't have the tools and awareness that I have, I can't imagine the reactive states that I might find myself in, and possibly even the lack of awareness of how I'm showing up, and the, I guess, inability to make choices that serve me more frequently. So I'm very grateful that I have the privilege of knowing what I do and what we do at Evolve Yourself Institute. And with that, very excited and really passionate about Marie and I sharing with you today the Awareness Breath Choice Method. It has been a lifesaver for me personally, and we have shared this with thousands of individuals and seen firsthand how it's really impacted them. And whether it's been in a high stress hospital setting, in the school, if it's a school principal or teacher, a CEO, or even stay-at-home mums that have utilised this incredible method, which Marie is going to beautifully take you through today. And I would love to invite everyone, while Marie is sharing the education, to obviously try on all the practices and her guidance as she takes you through it. And of course, bring up any questions that you have. The thing that I think we really pride ourselves in at Evolve Yourself Institute is that all of the concepts and tools we share with you are quite complex, but we deliver them very simply. And sometimes I think it's human nature in the simplicity of things to dismiss it quite easily. And we would like to really invite you to take that simplicity and try it on. And it is, as Marie will share, it is in the practice and in the consistency of doing these types of exercises that you see the magic happen. And yeah, I'm going to hand you over to Marie because I don't want you to miss any key points that she's going to share today. That ABC method, here we go.
Yes, Kezzy, you're amazing. Thank you. What we were also going to touch base on today is how the environment affects our inner state, and recognizing that the feedback loops and the patterns within our environment influence our inner world. Now, where the awareness can really start to shift in these micro practices of moments where we actually are choosing to renegotiate our conversation with our internal state. And Justine, I think that when you shared, when you had the breath, you're actually really taking your power back, okay? So the power gets re-engaged with the person inside, and that's an amazing influence which then we have over the environment in which we walk. So you can put your hand up if you can recognize that you are hyper aware of the outside world and running to their rhythms. Yep. Someone comes in with irritation and you are firing and wiring to that beat. Next thing you know, you find yourself irritated. Someone comes in and they're really sad and upset. Next thing you know, you're actually feeling a little bit off center yourself. Yeah. And that's the beautiful hyper awareness that we have within our system to be negotiating life outside ourselves, because that's a survival tendency. All right, coming back into that understanding when we learnt on our first week, and if you weren't here on the first week, was that the primal brain of social connection requires, for me to survive, I need to act like the people around me. Yeah, I've got to start dancing. That's why we end up wearing the same clothes as our friends. Okay, because we are finding our tribe, and then all of a sudden we modify ourselves based around what other people's expectations are. And if you are a person who is more towards the empath of us, well, we will most definitely be guided by the outside world more directly than our internal state. But where we start to shift the beat is when we take responsibility for the state that we are in our own skin. And that's where these powerful practices come into fruition. So recognizing that your outside world is creating inside responses, and your inside responses are creating a feedback with the outside world. Now, how is it that we actually support a person's capacity to be able to do that? because it's not easy when we've been designed into patterns that have more of a reflex outside. We take on the whole human, because my emotional state affects my physical state. My psychological patterns of my history of time and space influence my internal state as well. They run in patterns. My spiritual aspects of my more subtle patterns influence my expression as the physical instrument. I get to experience life through the physical instrument, but it is being fed through all of those multi-dimensions of what makes up a human experience. So we don't say one is better than the other or one is worse than the other, but the sleeve in which we experience, and that's our body-mind, is the one which is telling the story. Okay, so now we're getting more in contact with our internal ability to modify our state. And this is where recognizing different ways in unlocking elevated living takes a more of an integrative approach. We might be looking at the water that we're drinking, absolutely, but there's a multifaceted state on what encompasses the expression of this instrument. And that is inclusive of the physical, the emotional, psychological, and spiritual. And the way we play with that is through these meditative movement, education, breath, and reflect and project processes. So this is very exciting to be working in this field. So what we can see here is, what we see here is different parts of our environment that influence over our state. So we've got our relationships in our life. You know that you've created certain feedback and dance patterns with certain particular members in your family. Say, for example, you have a sister or a brother. Have you all got sisters or brothers in the room? Yep. Okay, so you've got a certain dance rhythm with that person. That's a certain feedback loop that influences how you feel inside and how you project into the world outside. They have a way of changing your state, and there's certain patterns that you too as individuals have fallen into. We have different work patterns. So we have certain cyclic patterns that happen within the field of work, and your work persona or personhood walks into work and has a certain dance pattern to that rhythm. Are you comprehending what I'm saying here? And it'll start to change your state around your internal world, even before walking into the doorway of your work space. You could have a certain dance pattern with your child or your parent. And so there could be certain patterns that you create within your parenting processes. Now, remembering that our food, if I eat chocolate and I only eat chocolate, it's going to influence my biochemistry within my system and change my state of all of myself, my psychological, my physical, my spiritual and mental state. All aspects of me are influenced by the food that I eat. Even the banana that I might eat this morning changes into my body's biochemistry. So all of those things are creating feedback loops and patterns, just like the pattern of thought. You might have patterns of thought in your experience, but there's patterns that serve you and patterns that hurt you. Now, if I am in an environment that is in harmony, okay, so I walk, and now I'll use nature as an amazing tool for that. The natural rhythms of nature, for it to thrive, has the quintessence of being in its natural rhythms of harmony. So that's why when you go into nature, ask yourself, what does it feel like for you? Yeah. What do you have to think about feeling better, or does your body mind start to fall into a synchronicity of its rhythms? Now, that's all happening subconsciously. the incredible thing about environment is that they have a certain tune to them. And that's why I love to use the words of dance, tune, and rhythm, because they are vibrating at a certain level. And everything at its cellular level is vibrating. Just as a guitar, if I have a guitar and I pluck a guitar string in one corner and I have another guitar over in the other corner, the vibration of that guitar starts to vibrate. So if I put myself in an environment of harmony, well, then my cells start vibrating in harmony. Okay, I'm actually using then my environment to serve me. Okay, so if I've had a big day where maybe I've had some dis-ease in my work life and I've walked into the field of work, it's been a lot of stuff of mental, psychological, and physical experience of tension. And then I recognize it in my awareness. Well, then I can go and support my harmony to arise within my system by giving it the environment that it requires to access that point. So I go and jump into the ocean, okay? And then I'm just really starting to vibrate. My body mind starts vibrating at that certain state of harmony. I'm just helping it on its way. And so the same thing that the outside world can influence my inside world. Well, imagine if someone chooses harmony more often inside themselves, well, then maybe they can influence all of the environment. That's a very influential state to actually say yes to. It's like, whoa, stop it. That's where you become the power of influence over your environment. Now, when we go back with our awareness on our breath, and that is definitely why we start with that, is that if I understand where tension is rising in my system, well, then I have more navigation over harmonizing it. So food is influencing my inner world. What food am I putting into my environment, which becomes my body, that is serving the harmony of its system? And so then what thoughts am I choosing to give attention to? The television takes me down a rabbit hole and I feel the state of dis-ease. What other environment could I say yes to start recalibrating my internal state? And that's why it's important to recognize that your environment is influencing your inner state and your internal state is influencing your environment. It's feedback loops within all of these systems, creating the state and the experience of your subjective viewpoint. So this person over here, who maybe is your sister or brother or mother, they are seeing the world to you from their perspective, very subjective, and there is no two viewpoints that are the same. Everyone is seeing through their own filters and their own perspectives. Now, if you start to calibrate through your conscious attention as to what's influencing more of your internal goodness, well, then you start to influence all of those environments around you. But this takes some reflection and understanding of those things as to what's happening within you. So which brings me to these little images that we kind of played around with last time. And so when I recognize that my internal state is in a calm, harmonic, uplifted, energized state, I'm more in my flow. I'm more in my freedom. I have more energy. Now that, unfortunately, over the past year or two, has been challenged within the collective culture of expression. And so when you cannot change anyone outside yourself, that's one thing that we all can recognize, that we cannot have any power over someone outside, but we actually have absolute 100% power of how we actually interpret that information. And so in the reflex of the fight flight, that's a perfect reflex if on memory that you take us to those states keeps us cautious, avoid us. It shows up in the world with defensive, avoidance, being cautious, fearful, anxious, reactive, and on high alert, which put up your hand if you can recognize in the world. Yeah. All right. So then when we want more of that, if we want that to ripple, well, then that's going to feed into our field of awareness, okay? But now as a conscious human who wants to take responsibility for the environment or their position in the world, well, then it takes a certain level of recognizing firstly of where you are experiencing those states. And that is where the awareness is in all of your relationships. So awareness, I become aware, and just become aware with me now as to whereabouts you're holding on tension in your physical body right now. Okay, just allow yourself to feel where you feel that. Now, I take absolute 100% awareness, and then I feel it. I feel the tension. Just take a breath and breathe into that space. So the awareness, there's a certain amount of tension. It could be in thought, you could be going down little rabbit holes, but firstly and foremost, I become aware that there's some tension in the body. Okay. So remember our breath, just take your breath into that spot. Now, when I take that, when I have a conversation with say I'm having a conversation with a work colleague, and that pattern that has been created with that work colleague, I've seen it 1,000 times before. It's the same pattern, it's the same colleague, and then we're doing the same dance, but we've wanted to change that dance. We've wanted to change that dance. Well, maybe I have individually wanted to change that dance. And I can't say to someone, you need to, because that goes into the blame and the attack and the defensive, coming back into this screen, defensive, blame, attack, yeah? I want to be fully responsible for the world in which I project into the world, okay? So then I sit in that conversation. The dance of a certain pattern is continual. Can you I'm just going to bring into the awareness, this is a small group, is can you relate to having a certain pattern within a relationship? Maybe it's with your parent, maybe it's with your ex, maybe it's with a colleague at work. Can you recognize there's a certain pattern that gets created? Then just sit in that pattern and imagine walking into the same scene of that pattern. So you have the awareness, there's a certain pattern, but you want to change it a little bit. There's a slight tweak in it. Well, the experience starts to unfold the same. And then you actually become aware as to where you are feeling the tension in your body. You take the breath there, which enables your higher brain functioning to not be disengaged. Over here on the right, we have our higher brain functioning not being able to be engaged. There's no engagement in that. There's it's really on those primal states, doesn't allow for executive kind of conversations to rise, or even words of articulation, because communication happened in those higher states, like communication through words anyway. And so coming back into those feedbacks, you take your breath and you're offering more space into your little ecosystem of your world, because you're being responsible for the patterns that you're creating in the world, which then brings here. So you have the awareness, you are triggered. All right, so you have the absolute awareness that you are triggered. And this is where we use in all of our programs the ability to reflect and project as a tool. And if I use the reflect and project, so I've reflected on my relationship with a work colleague or my partner, and I thought I really want to shift that. I would love to see it dance or play out in a more spacious way. And the biggest access to spaciousness is through the tool of awareness, then breath. And some things to find our subconscious patterns, we might have to reflect upon. And so I become aware that I'm triggered in this little dance of this little ecosystem of my relationship with that particular person. And I breathe into my belly. I am then offering the field in which I subjectively live, the space for other patterns to arrive. Yeah, it's a really, it seems so simple, but it's very, very, very powerful, which then in that pattern of arriving, I am enabling my body mind to then move into the space of choice. Now, what is choice? When we're operating subconsciously and on reflex, the majority of time, it's through the patterns that have become our reflex and our past. It has the energy that still holds those patterns from our past, and it takes away our ability to choose. So I go and say I've got Louise had a reflex of feeling intimidated by a person of authority, say any person of authority. And it could be, you know, an adult or a person who maybe was a teacher or any of those kind of persons of authority. I would, they would ask me a question and I would freeze, and then I wouldn't know the answer because my higher executive function couldn't work, and I would be silent. So my reflex was silence, okay, in the experience of intimidation. And now intimidation, that teacher wouldn't have been intimidating, it was my experience of that person being intimidated. That was a reflex from my past. I recognized that I was incredibly dictated by fear. And so fear was very riddled in the system. And so to look at my fear, to find subconscious patterns that would keep me not taking a step, I would say, for example, I would become aware that I wasn't saying yes. And then I would have the feeling of fear. I would breathe, and then I could choose whether I wanted to be there or take a step. So then that was another action which could rise. It could even be that I would just allow the experience to be, or accept the situation for what it is without wanting to change a thing, or recognize the fear, take a breath, feel the fear, and choose to direct it somewhere else. This is where choice really starts to rise in the system, when we have the space from awareness to our reactivity, which is where the breath comes into play. And then I'm enabled to use the power of choice. But then you go, well, shit, Kerrie, that sounds really easy in a ABC kind of thing. It's like saying the alphabet. In practice of breathing, and we did do a practice of breathing, I enable and engage my body to sit more into the space of its spaciousness to then choose choice. So what's really important here to remember is that our awareness can often come, let's come back to here, our awareness can often come through our body awareness. So the practices of becoming very in tune with our body enables us to recognize when we are triggered in those environments which are influencing the way we see and experience the world. So I have awareness, I'm triggered. I then have the availability to breathe. And you go, this is the power of breath. And I want to take you through a breath practice today. Got a little bit of time, haven't I? I just want to do a little 5 minutes, because in all of the programs or any type of education, it is just intellectual mumbo jumbo until we actually embody it. It becomes, the embodiment comes in the experience. And I can say that I'm aware of something, but unless I really do start questioning, reflecting, and seeing where I am triggered in those relationships that serve me or hurt me, I won't be able to change those patterns, because the body mind loves what it knows, and it will do what it takes to dance the beat of the cha-cha if you know the beat of the cha-cha. All right. So if the relationship with a work colleague knows that rhythm, it will walk into that environment and have already painted the rhythm of that dance. And it will keep going until someone says in their own experience that they're going to shift it. But that happens inside. And then that availability rises the availability to influence the environment in which we live. And that is the mastery, really. So is there any questions around awareness, breath, and choice, or how the environment influences your own experience?
I've got a question for you.
So let's have a little bit of a crack at...
Sorry, Justine was trying to say something, but your microphone's really low, Justine. We can barely hear you. That's okay.
That's all right. I'll go back to the...
Did you say something, Justine?
Yeah, she's just putting her headphones in.
Yeah, my mic's playing up. What I found really interesting going back is the difference between when you're talking about your state, so a parent state and say a manager state. So you take your children to the office for work or whatever, and I find that really conflicting between who I am as a parent to who I am as a team's leader. And so where you've got those conflicts, I'm really interested to understand how does that process through? Because you need to be both people you're almost competing to be both people at once in those environments.
In the framework of the way that our social structures are designed, is that we have these personas in all different aspects of our living, and that can come up with some conflict. Okay, and aligning your head, your heart, and your body into flow and freedom is where you attain your optimum expression. Okay, so there is no conflict. This and that takes practice and awareness and constant stripping, which is very exciting, because it's a very liberating world we can all walk into. And so in the conflict of, I'm this person in this scene and I'm that person in this scene, let it go. I mean, I'm not, it is actually catching yourself being the judge around it. Okay. So the judgment mind is working over here on the right. That's That's why judgment is in the mind-made sense of self, because it keeps us safe and it keeps us on high alert, but it doesn't serve the system, not for a flourishing organism.
Mm-hmm.
There, and it's perfect to be on for a little bit, but it's not supposed to be on all the time for the organism to truly thrive in its fluidity, flow, and allowance and freedom. And so the gorgeous thing about recognizing that in the multi-complex relationships that we have as individuals, they are frames in which have been built and repeated and repeated and repeated, but they're not true. They're just relatively true. And so that relative truth starts creating a pattern, and then that creates the expectations, that creates the feedback loop. Then there you go, we've got an identity.
Okay, so this ties back into that authenticity piece about being your like bringing your whole self to everything rather than compartmentalizing.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
And that is, that's awesome. Perfect question, because the dance and the dance and its rhythms to each of the individuals, there's nothing wrong with having a certain way of being, or doing the cha-cha with your mum and then turning around and doing the tango with the kid. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that we hold on to the identity in which it dances. We judge it, we criticize it, we're down on it. It is unnecessary. It is unnecessary. You dance a certain dance with a partner. If it feels aligned, do it. And you dance a certain partner with your child. If it feels aligned, do it. Without turning on the judge and the critic. And then you will see more fluidity and flow rise in the ecosystem of all your systems, because you will not be so worried about what other people think. And that is the way we've designed ourselves, is as a collective, is that it's more important about what other people think of us than how we're actually aligning in our own authentic expression as a collective. And so then when we buy into that story, that becomes the feedback loop in all of the ecosystem, which is then when a child is born, they already start firing and wiring to those rhythms because they're mirroring our rhythms. And so if you want your child to grow up to be an authentic expression of themselves and not attaching to what other people think and allow their sense of freedom, well, it's time that we do that state ourselves, because that is what you're feeding the field. Whatever you are feeling in your state is what you are feeding the field of your environment. And so we're rising into a world of more authenticity, less of the other stuff, yeah, which is very, very good. And so then that becomes your state of influence. And that is why these simple practices of becoming aware as to where you are doing things out of your belief based upon what other people think, or are you doing this because I actually choose to do this? Am I having this conversation because it's aligned? And it can take a little bit of stripping and unlearning, and it's not always easy. You know? It's a bit of a shake-up system for the bio-memory of its physics, and the physics loves what it knows, so it wants to pull you back in. But awareness that something in my environment is not serving me, I feel where it's triggered. And then the same goes is to this environment that serves me, that I think serves me. Is it really serving me? My whole self, my whole expression? Am I constantly being, because some people say, oh, it serves me to have a couple of drinks after work. It serves me, I feel released, yeah? But, you know, and the whole system, is it serving the whole system? And I mean you as a whole system, as an ecosystem of yourself. And so, which is very, very, very cool. So awareness, and then we take the breath. So those personas, or the personhood in all of those relationships do run in different rhythms, but your intrigue, you wouldn't turn up to today, or even be curious about it without wanting more of your authenticity to rise through your skin. And that is very, very cool, because there's more of those humans in the world. And so I'm going to take another type of breath practice. We did a belly breath the other day, yeah? And that is an amazing one to support switching on the parasympathetic system. Now, this particular breath I'd like to guide you through right here, right now, is to inhale through the nose, but don't allow the breath to really shake your nostrils. Your nasal hair. You want it to be like quiet as a mouth. You don't want to hear it. And you don't want to blow out through your nose like really fast. So it wants to be very, very, very slow to the rhythm of this particular breath. So you're breathing it in. It's hardly moving, no wind, no wind, no wind. And you exhale. You're almost limiting your breath. You feel like you want to gasp for air, but just control that breath. It's light, it's light. Don't gasp it in, just light, 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 slow, slow, slow. You might almost feel like you don't have enough air, but just trust. You are shifting the state. You're breathing through the nose, the cleansing processes of the nasal passage. There could be a rise of panic over your heart. Just allow the slow, slow, slow. It's super slow. Don't move any of the hairs in your nose. When we explore a certain breath practice, sometimes you might even feel a little bit unsettled. It's because the body-mind is so used to not doing this, and it wants to take you somewhere else. Just slow, slow, slow. So I have awareness that someone in my environment or something in my environment has caused a state of disease in my system. I take a breath in, which then elevates my space to choose. I can then say something to express myself, if so be it. I might even choose silence. I might take a step into something that is uncomfortable because I want to learn how to do the cha-cha. I might even calibrate and continue to breathe, continue to choose calibration. I might choose to feel, actually feel where that tension is. Accept, be aware. I might watch from a distance the dance of the cha-cha. Or I could even change the energy. And with practice, you can transmute it very quickly. So that is ABC, people. Is there any kind of questions or Kerrie, do you want to maybe, is there anything that I've missed out on that you'd like to support?
You haven't missed out. I think that was a pretty in-depth coverage, Marie, of ABC. I think it's just, when you've been practicing it, it's for a long time, or it becomes knowledge that is so familiar, it's sometimes difficult to put yourself in the shoes of someone who these concepts are quite new to. And I think I would just encourage, you can relate it to anything that you're learning that's new, just to try it on, and to really even let go of all the story and just start feeling. And I think that's why Evolve Yourself, obviously one of our key things is body awareness. And I think if people are just trying the practice on, and no doubt with your beautiful demonstration today with the breath exercises that we've just done, I think everyone could probably agree that you immediately feel different. And that, I think, probably the big takeaway, and that I would share, and why I'm so passionate about the awareness breath choice method, is how empowering it is. Empowering to be aware of awareness, and empowering that we all have choice. And I think, so I don't think you've missed anything. You've articulated beautifully, as always.
So with the attention that Letitia's created over the last 7 days, through the 7 weeks, it's, like all of these things are influencing have an influence. The COVID has an influence of how we experience the world. The food has an influence. Our attention has an influence. And our environment is influencing our internal state all the time. It's feedback loops that feed, push, pull, push, pull. And awareness rises when we actually recognize that we are experiencing all of that inside ourselves. That is the waves that are coming through the sound of a barking dog moves through our ear passage, vibrates through, and our brain interprets it. The sound is built inside. The biochemical shifts when I eat a banana is happening inside. When I see the picture, we think the picture of the world is seen outside ourselves, but we are seeing the vibration that runs through the image, through the technology of our incredible eyes, who is picking up on those receptors of light, which then bounce and are interpreted by our mind. So it is actually all happening inside. So when we engage with the inside, we're able to start expanding in awareness the availability to see more, sense more, and be more. That's a very powerful thing to know. Very, very exciting.
It's very exciting. Does anyone have any questions for Marie before we wrap up today? Anything that stood out or is unclear?
Not really a question, more just a comment. I sort of came into this meeting quite stressed, and so I found that breathing thing quite challenging. I felt like I needed to gasp for air, but I sort of feel now strangely sort of better or more awake or something. I did find that challenging.
Yeah, and Sarah, thanks so much for acknowledging that challenge. And it's very challenging to actually allow our system to do what it's born to do, because we're so caught up in the patterns of not, and that's okay. And the conscious breath practice, where we're giving attention to conscious breath practice, is when we start recalibrating the instrument, and it can expose those states of dis-ease in the system, and it can shake it up a little bit. So don't be afraid of it. It really that you want to go like this, right? Yeah, there was a feeling, and especially with that slow breath, it can really arise that. But that just goes to show as to how much you're actually doing that as your normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So high five.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
Maria, it's mine. So probably similar, but different to Sarah, so I didn't gasp, but certainly felt that I had to take some quicker, deeper breaths because I felt like I was, and I'm probably now tired, like I feel I could go and have a nap versus awakened, but relaxed.
Yeah, and thank you. And please just listen to your body. You are remodeling, you are rewiring. The whole thing about this process is that we're rewiring the biorhythms that are no longer serving you. And when you are choosing to do that consciously, you are activating it very quickly. And listen to your body and practice the slow breathing coming through the nasal passage. And slow release. I think I believe that the two foundational breaths, if we actually really engage with those two foundational ones, the belly breath and the slow one through the nasal passage, we would abolish a lot of crap that's going on in the world. Their foundation, I think, would be great if everyone let them.
I just love that. Oh, sorry, was someone about to speak? No. I love that it builds on what Morgan was saying last week. You know, Morgan talked a lot about trapped emotions in the body and, you know, just allowing yourself that time to feel what's happening in your body. And with NET, that particular tool, I sort of shared my experience, how it's like these layers of entanglement that are of all these emotions and trauma and stuff, this ease, as you were calling it, that's trapped in your body. And each week, as we're like peeling those layers off and untwisting and untwining, you will find that you fall into that pattern of just being able to breathe a little bit easier. And some weeks or some days might be more challenging and you might twist it back up, but then you've got the tools to untwist it again. And, you know, each week it's I guess, opening you up a lot more. And I think that's the beauty of this sequence of workshops.
Totally agree, Letitia. Like the all of those things build on each other, and then your internal wisdom and your internal antenna is exposed into that awareness of the feedback loops and the availability to process those clusters that still sit in the cells of the body mind. And those clusters are there to just release themselves. You don't, it's not hard and heavy, you're just allowing. And so that's why all of these types of practices absolutely build, and you've done a great job with the construct of how it's unfolding. It's perfect.
It happened very easily. Everyone just came in very quickly. And, as you know, as I mentioned the first week, it was my discussion with Sarah, who's on this call, that prompted it, made a few calls, and within an hour or two, everyone was lined up. That's how in flow this was, that I knew it was right for the, you know, ripe for the taking, so to speak. Sorry, what are you saying, Sarah? You missed the session last week. Dad had a chiro, and he does NETs. That's cool. So that's great that because it was a brand new thing to me a few months ago. So it's great that. How does your dad find it?
I don't know. He's sort of a man of few words. I'm just always going, but what does that mean? And how did you do that? What about this and that and the other thing? But I don't know, it's kind of a bit weird when it's your dad doing it to you. But yeah, I know he's just a bit of a guru with sort of chiro and natural health and kinesiology and all that kind of stuff. So no.
Your dad does it to you, not your dad gets it done for
no,
him.
No, he is a chiro that does NET. So I've had it done on me a number of times. Yeah.
Oh, that's even cooler.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it's an amazing experience. I've had kinesiology before, but this just goes one step deeper, I find.
Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. I think good session, everyone. I think Marie and I would just invite everyone to keep breathing, exploring your breath, like Marie said, the belly breath, and then the slow nasal breathing in and out. And if anyone has any questions, you can always contact us at Bob Yourself Institute. We have an ABC 7-day program that we offer. And if you want to dive deeper, we have like bigger and longer programs, because though the concept's simple, to really embody it, it does take practice, forming great habits and a deeper learning and understanding. So come play with us if you want to explore more.
Thank you so much, ladies. And I hope everyone got as much out of this session as I did. I know I'm literally ready for a nap after that little breathing exercise. I'm pinching myself to wake up. But thank you so much, ladies, for jumping onto this series. Hope you can jump on the next few weeks with our other facilitators so we get to see your awesome faces again. But I know that I speak for everyone when I say we're really grateful for what you've contributed to this and your wisdom and your expertise in this.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, ladies.
Thanks, Letitia.
No worries. Well, sorry. Was something about to say?
Thanks, everyone.
So yes, as I've said before, jump on to EYI's Facebook, follow them on Instagram. They've got a really good mailing weekly or bi-weekly newsletter that comes out with some great tools and links to workshops and things like that. So make sure you sign up to that. And next week we have Susanna, who's talking about the family dynamics in business and how that I guess relates on an emotional level and how to sort of bring healthy habits into that environment so you're not creating generational overwhelm or generational abuse in some instances. So that one, the family dynamic in business, it doesn't mean you have to be in a family business. It's, you know, children, your sisters, your husband, your partner, how they fit into your working environment. So that one will be an interesting one. That's sort of moving us towards the pointy end of this series where we're talking more how do we apply these elements and practices into our business. And then I will be the following week, and then followed by Justine Kirk talking about goals, so SMART goals. So thank you everyone for joining us. If you've missed any, don't forget you can jump onto wholegrow.me to catch up on all the other recorded sessions and a worksheet. There's also a worksheet for this session that we've uploaded that Kerrie forwarded me yesterday. Is there anything to mention about that, ladies, or is this just like a little worksheet for them to follow regarding this ABC practice?
Yeah, it's just a guide around this, and there's a couple of it's kind of, some people love to write things down or read things over, and it's just really good resource tool to be able to start becoming more aware, because your first point is awareness and recognizing where we get triggered. Write them down, and also aware of what feedback loops you're creating in your environment. And so you can be more influential, really. So it's fun.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you everybody, and glad to see. Hope not too many people forgot the daylight savings time. Is everyone getting the reminders, by the way, that I'm sending out through the platforms? Awesome. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you everybody, and we will see you tomorrow. What am I talking about? I nearly needed to remind myself. Girls, come on, we've got Q&A tomorrow. Don't forget to jump on. Oh dear Lord, I need to go to bed. I'm too relaxed. But yes, we'll see you tomorrow for our Q&A at 11:30 New South Wales Southern End time, 11:30 for any of us Northerners. So catch you all then.
All right, lovely.
See you later.